Robert Daly is director of the Kissinger Institute on China and the United States. He joins us once again for this edition of Now. As always, Robert, a pleasure to have you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you about this. Fundamentally, I guess we're talking about U.S. China policy, but specifically, you just took part in a couple of very interesting meetings. If you could set the stage for us and tell us what the topic was.
We've seen over the past 6 months a series of big think pieces from think tanks, universities, some people in government who are trying to reframe U.S. China relations, who want to do another comprehensive look and set policy. Try again. And so we've recently seen two pieces, both out of the Carnegie Institute for International Peace. One by Michael Swain, which is saying that we really need to find ways to accommodate China, to make allowances for Chinese power, and to, in essence, be willing to give up or adjust the idea that America must predominate in East Asia, and then so accommodate. And then we've had another very widely publicized piece that says, no, double down. Call China out, contain, and unequivocally reaffirm American predominance. And those two pieces, I think, frame the debate quite usefully, and they've both been noted in China.
So is there a third way?
Well, I think the third way is the muddle.
Along?
The third way is the muddle. The third way is that we take one from column A and one from column B, and that we be accommodating at times, but be more hard line. And this seems to be where we're headed right now. Last week we had the Obama administration, on the one hand, signal to China that they wanted to renew a nuclear agreement with China. And on the other hand, at the Department of Defense, we had Ash Carter saying that he wanted options which might include sailing American warships within the 12-mile nautical limit, a limit that we claim doesn't exist, for the reefs that China is building up in the South China Sea. So that would be potentially quite escalatory. So on the one hand, we cooperate. On the other hand, we confront at ever higher levels. Now, of course, China gets a say in this. China gets to respond.
How long, if muddle along is the choice, try to split the difference between the two polarized opposites, how long is that viable?
Well, this is one of the key questions. Can we continue to muddle if part of the muddle, cooperation, is interpreted by China as encouraging more assertiveness, or what we would see as adventurism on their side, while the other end of the muddle smacks to them of containment? Again, they get a say. They get to respond. We don't simply call these shots. So the muddle, I think, without signaling, not only to China, but deciding to ourselves what our strategic disposition is. The United States must either make some kind of allowance for China's power and China's ambitions, some of which are coherent, legitimate, some of which could conceivably be constructive. Or we do have to, as this report by Ashley Tellis and Robert Blackwell says, make it clear to China that it is a containment policy, and as they say, we are no longer going to aid and abet their rise, which threatens the United States.
Well, but wait, isn't China an ally?
No, China's not an ally.
What, a competitor? A friendly competitor?
China is, well,
frenemy? What do we
this is why we have all of the big think
In other words, you don't contain
Nobody
allies.
Quite knows what the right paradigm is. We benefit greatly from the relationship with China, from cooperative relations, from trade relations, from academic relations.
What do you think is the best way to describe that relationship? If it's not competitor, ally, frenemy, whatever it might be. Do you have a term?
I don't think that there's an easy, quick phrase that's going to do it. I think the challenge is for us to signal that we are truly open to China's helping to refine the world order and to propose new international laws or rules, to build international institutions, and to provide international public goods. We have to be open to that. We do not have a choice. And it would be dishonorable to try to staunch these things when they bring some of the resources that the area badly needs. At the same time, we have to insist that China propose rules as such that it work within the incomplete and evolving international framework, and that it be specific about some of its intentions, and that it honor international best practices. Now, if you have one word for that, great. We can stop reading all of these long think tank reports.
Let me ask you about an assumption, this assumption of U.S. preeminence in the Asian-Pacific region. Is this a remnant of World War II?
No, it comes after that. I mean, the idea is that the United States must be able to prevail anywhere in the world on fairly short order and at minimal costs. The
world's policeman.
Not only the world's policeman, but that we should not allow the emergence of a regional hegemon that can challenge us regionally in Asia or in Europe. Can we still afford that as our basic strategic assumption? Have we looked at our growth rates, at China's growth rates, because China is clearly the major test case for that? Do we know that we can continue to afford that as a basic strategic assumption? Or do we have to work multilaterally, work with allies, be one of the most influential countries in a multilateral regime that provides some kind of stability? And this is more or less what Michael Swain is proposing when he says that we have to move beyond this idea of preponderance.
And that's the accommodation argument.
That's the accommodation
argument. Does China have a counter proposal to the containment argument? Do they have a plan for balance of power or sharing of power?
Well, China does not signal its intentions clearly. And this means that we have to guess what it is about, particularly in the Western Pacific, where China draws a line, what they call the 9-dash line, through most of the South China Sea, including well into the exclusive economic zones of other countries, and including in zones where other countries make territorial claims. It will not say where the 9-dash line is or what it means. It's deliberate ambiguity to give it strategic space and to give it time. So China will look at something like the Tellus-Blackwell report and say this is containment, this is Cold War thinking, this may very well be, and it could be a prescription for a new arms race, but China isn't helping in this discourse because it still hides many of its intentions.
At the risk of trivializing this, it sounds like some sort of a card game where no one's willing to show their cards. Or is it worse than that, is that they don't even know what their cards say?
Well, there's a debate in China as there's a debate here. We tend to attribute to the other side a greater capacity for long-term thinking, for clarity, and for strategy than they actually exhibit. Mm-hmm. And there have been Chinese scholars who have written about this. They look at the American policy prescriptions, descriptions of China, and they say,
a master plan.
We're not, there's no master plan. We're still crossing the river by feeling for the stones. There's a debate in China. There's a debate here. So what we need is better informed diplomacy, a little less bellicosity on both sides. And I think we also have to do a self-audit that asks if we can afford to still have a clear preponderance of forces in the East Asia.
And are we moving toward that? Is there any indication that we will get somewhere different, or are we still in this kind of muddled
party
stage?
To what I hope are the exhaustive studies being done here. Here at the Wilson Center. I certainly hope that we are doing a rigorous self-audit and that our policy will be based on that sort of realism and not based on simply a desire to dominate and claims that the whole world is calling out for our leadership.
Well, thanks. I look forward to future developments and future discussions.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Robert.